At DLP Capital, we empower lives, build thriving communities, and drive success for our investors and team members. We believe in the power of real estate to transform the lives of our residents by providing them with high-quality, attainable housing that fosters a sense of belonging and community. But it doesn't stop there. Through our commitment to excellence, we also enrich the lives of our investors and team members. By increasing returns, driving profits, and fostering fulfillment, we create opportunities for growth and success. We're not just in the business of real estate, we're in the business of making a difference, and we can't do it alone. We need your help to continue to build thriving communities and transform lives. So join DLP Capital, and together, let's make a difference.
So this building a thriving communities thing, there's something in this for each one of us, I'm convinced. We put together a panel of people today that are some of the best of the best. In each of the ways of what they do and how they do it, they were chosen because they've got something really specific and unique to bring to the table. Some of them are property owners, some of them are on the investment side of things, some of them are program operators. And I want to just take a second to introduce these people to you, and then we're going to dig in with some questions. First is Teresa DeVos. Teresa is with DLP Capital. She's our Senior Director of Portfolio Management for DLP. So give her a round of applause, everybody. Welcome, Teresa. We have Kip Sowden with Reef Holdings. Most of you know Kip probably, so welcome, Kip. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you. We have Peter Kim from PIMD. Glad to have you, Peter. Kelly Kimberlin from Apartment Life. If you haven't met Kelly yet, before you leave this room today, you got to meet Kelly Kimberlin. Hear a little bit about what they do with Apartment Life. You're going to want to be part of that. So, Kelly, thanks for coming. She actually rebooked her flight. She's flying home on a red-eye tonight to be with her kids, but she said, I want to be part of this today. I can't wait. So thanks for being here, Kelly. And we have Brett Swarts from Capital Gains Tax Solutions. He's the one that you want to talk to. He's going to tell you how to save all kinds of money so you can invest in thriving communities. Thanks for being here, Brett. Appreciate it. All right, so as we get started on this panel discussion today, you guys have a couple of microphones up here. I'm going to kind of just start this first question. We're just going to go down the line, okay? And as we move through this, we'll bounce all over the place. But for this first one, let's just kind of work our way down the line. You know, the topic of today is building a thriving community. And for those of us at DLP, there's a few of us here in the room from DLP, we kind of live, eat, and breathe this thriving community stuff all the time, all day, every day, talking about it and thinking about it. Those words, while you might not have that label on it, our guess is that there's a piece of this building the thriving community thing that we're talking about today that you really resonate with, that you also are doing in your role. And we'd love to just hear, what does that look like for you, this idea of building thriving communities? What does that look like for you in your role, in your company, and how you're doing that? So just a general idea on that.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Peter. I'm actually an anesthesiologist. And my role is, my whole life, I thought I was just going to be a physician. And about 2 years in to becoming a full-fledged physician, I realized the game isn't what I thought it was going to be. Medicine wasn't what I thought it was going to be in terms of its direction, where it was heading from a security standpoint. So I just started investing in real estate. And just to cut the whole story short, I just started sharing about it with everybody. You guys have to do this. You've got to figure this out. This is what's going on in medicine. You've got to create your own security through real estate. You can do this. I know other doctors who have. And just by chance, just doing that enough, somebody said, you should put it out there into the internet. And that's what I started doing. I started sharing with people online as much as possible through blogs, podcasts, and it just kept growing organically into like conferences, events, and really building communities. And today I say that's what we do. We build communities of physicians who want to figure out how to take control, want to build other streams of income, figure out how to get better together, figure out all these things. And so that's really been our one thing. If you ask us what we do at the core, we're an education platform. That's where it started. But really, we're all about building communities because we, again, in our niche, in our circle, again, it's a circle of trust. Once you're in, and just people thrive by meeting each other. And so by that, we've built this, again, a really thriving community. We like to say our community is about 100,000 strong at this point. And physicians there's only about 1 million right now practicing in the country. So right now our goal is to build that and to grow from there. And that's where it started. And then from there, we decided to start a company, raising capital and building on top of that. But it started with education, building communities first. And that became a sustainable model for us now whenever we want to raise capital, present opportunities. And it started with that first.
Very good, okay. Yeah, kind of this exponentially we can do more together, right? I love that you said better together. So that's at the core of what you do and how you live out building thriving communities. Teresa, how about yourself? You're at DLP. Share a little bit about what it looks like in our communities there and what this looks like in your role.
And hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you this afternoon. And Don did just share with all of us the foundational elements to building thriving communities within DLP, and it's just wonderful to be able to be a part of that. But what I would like, to add is that what you just said, Peter, is what I've been thinking. This is broad. This is big. This is deep. This is so much more. A lot of times in our industry, we think of a community as a single property or a single building, right? But this is so much more than that. It expands beyond that. It expands into that community. It expands into all the vendor relationships that we have, all of the investor relationships we have. So all the stakeholders are able to participate with us in building these communities. And for us at DLP, and for me personally, to keep it personal too, when we're intentionally focused on building thriving communities, for everybody in this room, I think what it does is it takes us and it sets us apart. It sets the very good apart from the very excellent, and we want to be excellent.
That's great. Thank you, Teresa. Yeah, good stuff. Brett, how about you?
Yeah, I think it first starts with, when I think about building communities, I think about my family. So it's building, my wife and I, we have 5 children, ages 13, the oldest, youngest is 5. So I think it starts at home with building an environment where we happen to homeschool our kids. We've been fortunate to be able to do that. My wife had a passion for raising children as well as education. And so that's been a big part of our foundation. But I think what I try to extend that into our team members, right, where they are like family, and we are encouraging their growth as leaders. And more than, I think a good way we approach this is it's the ceiling of any company or any family or anything else is the leadership, right? Everything rises and falls on leadership, and so to the ability we can help all of our team members grow, and we also, I think, as a part of our clients become our family as well, and we're trying to do everything we can to help them in every part of their lives. Part of our focus is unlocking capital to also be able to make an impact and or to be infused into communities. So I think it all kind of connects in that scenario. That's kind of the best answer I have for that one.
Yeah, that's great.
Right.
That's great. It just reminds me, you're hearing this word over and over and over again, and you said it right there at the very end. It's kind of what's at the center and the core of all of this is this idea of community, right? This connectedness to one another, this living in relationship with one another. Kelly, how about yourself?
So Apartment Life is a community building program, and when community is built, then residents stay. They don't move out. And so what we do in Apartment Life is we will place a couple to live on site, and then they throw the parties, which pulls the residents out and connects them to each other. And so we're not an event company. We're much more than that, because the secret sauce of Apartment Life is not the party itself, it's what happens between the parties. And that's where the community is built, that's where it's thriving, that's when the lives of the residents are enriched, that's when they're engaged. I'll tell you a quick story. I live in Atlanta, and so we had a property where at a party, our Apartment Life team was gathering a group of residents and said, hey, I'm going to have charcuterie over at my house later, or my apartment later on. I'd love for y'all to come. And there was a few ladies that were around, and the lady was like, oh, so fun, I'll bring the strippers. And let's hold off on the strippers, but come on over. And so then they ended up having a lovely time, and we are faith-based, and ended up having some really great discussions about who God was, and it went from strippers to God. You never know what a day holds. And so that to me is a thriving evening, right, where people are just engaged in relationships and hanging out and having fun.
Very cool. Thank you. You're going to hear a lot more from her about the Apartment Life program, too, and how we make this happen. So, Kip, we want to give you a chance to share.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here. First of all, Reef Holdings, we are really focused on faith and family. That's the way our business has been built. Today, we operate in 5 main verticals, but 4 of them are related to residential and vacations, attainable, housing, and it's no coincidence that we, have done so much business with DLP, and I think it's primarily because of our DNA being so very, very similar. It's always hard to listen to Don or follow him on something because, we think a lot alike, and particularly as it relates to, everything, multifamily and faith and family. We've got Melanie French sitting back there who runs Reef Residential. She's the CEO of Reef Residential, and she and Reef have been working hard over the last 6-8 months on our 2024 impact initiatives and enhanced resident programs. And this was long before I knew that I'd be up here speaking, or that Don was setting up this event. So our paths do run parallel. And a lot of our initiatives in here are very similar to your programs. And, it's a lot of faith-based in all of our communities. Today we have 62 communities, 12 states, about 15,000 units on the multifamily side. But we also have drive-to leisure hospitality, really catering to, affordable vacations for middle America. That's our theme. We do a lot of BTR. We've got Reef Communities is another vertical that's literally building cities, single family, for sale, BTR, multiple multifamily communities, et cetera. We're about $4.5 billion in AUM today, and I'd say that more than half of that has been because of DLP and the relationship that we enjoy. So we're in, I think, all of your funds.
Yeah. That's great, Kip. Thank you. Let me ask you a quick question, Kip, as a follow-up to that. If off the top of your head, do you happen to know how many residents in whole in your portfolio?
I know Melanie will, but I think it's over 50,000.
Okay, over 50,000 people as residents. Brett, you in the work that you do, how many lives are kind of impacted, touched through that? Give us an estimate there.
Oh gosh. As far as we're investing, right? We're investing the funds, right? So, I mean, we have around 85 families in particular, right? Mm-hmm. Right now who have used our service to be able to, defer tax and invest, but our funds go into other investments. So I don't know. That's a good number. I should probably get that one, Danny. I'll work on that one and get it for the next one. Yeah.
Another 50,000?
I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure how
tens of thousands we're going to
quantify that. Yeah.
I know at DLP the other day we were in a meeting, we were talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 85,000 residents around that in the properties that you mentioned 100,000, Peter. You start to see the numbers stack up here, right? If as leadership and as leaders and operators of our communities, we begin to take a different approach and start doing our work through this lens of building thriving communities, can you see the exponential impact that we start to have on that young person that lives in that community that's facing that statistic of 64 times more likely to end up in prison if they don't have a third grade reading level? Do you see how this begins to really filter its way down to real life impact in the communities that we operate? So thank you guys for sharing that. That's, hundreds of thousands of lives that we have an opportunity to make a difference in through shifting our focus and doing things in this way. I want to add, let's get even more practical for the group here today, because a lot of kind of like great idea. You might be sitting here thinking, this is a great idea. I love it. What do I do, right? Kelly, you're somebody up here today that this is what you do, right? You literally, your teams wake up, eat, sleep, breathe, do this all day long. Your program is all about this. Take a couple of minutes to just tell us about Apartment Life.
Yeah, so Apartment Life, what we do, our value add, is that we offer to do 2 to 3 events per month. And then we do welcome visits and renewal visits. But again, the secret sauce is, and what keeps us from being an event company, is that our teams are trained to do acts of care, which basically means they look for ways to be a good neighbor. So they find out that a neighbor just lost their job, and so then they will put at the door a bottle of wine and flowers and a note. Or they find out that a manager is going out of town and needs somebody to watch their dog. I loved that example that you gave. And so if the manager is going to let our team watch their dog over the weekend, that tells you about the value that they place on the relationship. And so That's basically our program. We have 650 across the country, and I specifically oversee Georgia, Florida, and Alabama.
Okay, so these are you guys place ambassadors that kind of live on site at the property. Their task there is all day, every day. They're thinking about what Peter said, better together.
Yes.
How do we help people live together in this community, share our lives with one another, believing that makes us better?
They'll give every single week, they'll send a report to the management of what they've done that week. And then, of course, monthly, they give a more robust report that includes pictures of the events, how many people come to the events, and then the specific acts of care that they do to just show that this is a great place to live. And so what happens as a result is, like I said, residents stay, they don't move out, and then the online reputation also increases. When an Apartment Life team is on site, the Aura score will go up by 10 points.
Wow.
So
very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Teresa, do you want to follow that up? Or yeah, go ahead.
I would like to follow that up, so thank you. And Kelly, that's great. And I can say, too, having been a partner with Apartment Life on a number of communities over the years, I've really seen the benefit and know the benefit that they bring. And that's what I was going to add. I wasn't sure if you were going to touch on that, but it's the resident satisfaction piece. Because what I've seen by having intentional people on the communities that are focused on this effort, it's not that single event. It is the connectivity that occurs between those events. It's knowing that there's somebody there that cares and that they're reaching out when they need help, or just saying hi and are you having a great day? Because so many people, even if they're living in one of our wonderful communities, they don't have family, they don't have friends, they don't have that connection. And I was going to add that as I was preparing for this, I had a couple stats, but your comment to resident satisfaction is very true. There was a recent survey that was completed by Satisfax, and the data point was that since 2019, there has been a 19% improvement in retention directly attributed to a sense of community.
Very good. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with us. I want to get more specific even. Apartment Life is a perfect example of what we're talking about. Make sure you connect with Kelly. She represents kind of the southeastern portion of the U.S., but she's got some colleagues that in your state, in your community, she can connect you with right away. You can start making this happen. I want to ask the rest of you on the panel as well, what are some other ideas? This idea of some intentional kind of programming, for lack of a better word, but some intentional efforts, let's say, towards cultivating community. Towards what have you done? You mentioned, Kip, you've got some 2024 plans already in place. We want to hear about those.
And I think it's very similar to Apartment Life, and some of the things that we're doing at all of our communities are just as simple as giving birthday cards for the residents when it's their birthday. Thank you notes for choosing us, drip campaigns sent twice annually promoting retention, resident surveys, handwritten holiday cards personally distributed to every home, twice annual national open house weekend events, resident appreciation month, celebrate residents each week with social events and contests, bi-monthly resident acknowledgement messages through active buildings, monthly resident socials, quarterly team and meet and greets with residents and leaderships, pet-friendly quarterly events, biannual health and wellness events promoting holistic and mindful activities, just enhanced resident referrals, coffee and light refreshments daily in the clubhouse. It's really all about engaging the residents and really creating that community and having your on-site staff interacting with, the residents on a daily basis. And like Apartment Life, we're partnering with, churches in the community and offering, a free unit or even two for, people within the church that might be in need of it, but can also interact with and set up Bible studies with the, residents and providing facilities within the community for that.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Peter.
I think this is something that I think DLP does really, really well, is that they're great at having people identify, like they create an identity around being in the part of this community. Like, I am a DLP investor, I'm a DLP partner. We've tried to do a lot of the same with our communities, both on the investor side and then also on the community resident side, is that, we do kind of drive home a little bit that you are part of this community. So I wouldn't say we give them a nickname or name, but we do name our communities in a lot of ways to have people identify with that, they are part of this group. And you almost, by giving people names, right? Sports teams, people identify by just finding that name, whatever, a cute name, for your investors. So we've done that before. We call it, we have a certain community that we call the accelerators. So the people are like, they carry that badge of honor. And so they don't want to leave that community, because once they leave that, they lose that identity that they have. I think DLP does a great job doing that. And so that's come from even investors. We created even tiers, and they have certain names of the groups, and they really identify with that and are very proud of it. And then even within the communities, even when we refer to our, tenants, we don't say you're tenants. We're like, you're part of these communities. We kind of give them certain communities, we give them names. As the community, you're part of this. According to kind of what the name of the community is and things like that. So, we've done cool things that we've done in addition to all these things are amazing. We've done things like after school, like community education or after school programs, so that parents and workforce housing, all that stuff have a place for their kids. And that's like an amazing amenity that nobody ever wants to give up. And that's really created a lot of stickiness in some of these areas. But all of these things are really great ideas.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other thoughts on the panel about this right away? Any other specifics on different programs or efforts that you've done so far or plan to do soon around kind of enriching the lives of the residents through building thriving communities?
Yeah, I would add what I've seen also be very successful, and it really focuses on the wellness and nutrition and health piece of this, is offering virtual fitness as well as live fitness classes, on the lawns. And you don't have to have a big gym to be able to do that. Also, vending machines that offer healthy alternatives and snacks within them, in addition to having, coffee bars and water and all those types of things available. So there's a lot of really unique items and programming that we can do that's focused around fitness and wellness.
Okay, very good. Kelly, I see you want to jump in here.
One thing I wanted to add, that our teams that live on site, they actually get local vendors to help with the parties. So they're not doing all the work, but they're using the community around the apartment to be able to add value. So like they'll bring in, a couple of food trucks, and they'll have it set up so then the kids are out playing and everybody's out hanging out. And then, of course, the food trucks, the operators of those are also being blessed. They're getting to sell their food. So that is great. But then our team is able just to connect with people. So it's just the hanging out, where you just feel like it's a block party and everyone's hanging out and having a good time. So.
Very cool. I don't know about you guys, but I want to move into one of these properties after hearing this. I'm going to get a birthday cake, I heard. I'm going to get food trucks, and people are going to celebrate me all day long. This is awesome. I want to move in.
And there's one other thing I wanted to kind of
Kip,
mention and touch on that I think helps bring a community, together, and that is having a, philanthropic, component or charity.
Yeah.
And we're big at Reef, focused on that. We have Reef Charities, but we're going to expand it to all these communities where, part of the rent, maybe it's, even if it's $1 a month per unit or $2, corporate wide, can go into a pool and allow the communities to select a charity or somebody to help, and it just adds to the overall feeling of community to get your residents involved in that philanthropic endeavors.
Wow, what a great idea. Somebody from DLP write that down for me. So I don't have a pen right now, but I want to remember that. That's a fantastic idea. Gathering a dollar from each door at the property, and together, collectively, we decide how do we want to use that philanthropically. That's fantastic. I love that. Thank you, Kip. So, a couple thoughts on this really quick before I move to the next question. There's a lot of discussion up here about being known, a lot of discussion about the importance of communication within this, how important it is to actually take the effort to communicate, to spend time together. Someone told me one time that you can tell a person or a company's priorities by considering the 3 C's: their calendar, their communication, and their checkbook. Meaning, what do they spend time doing? What do they talk about? And what do they spend their money on, right? If we want to be about building thriving communities, we have to organize it. We have to make it a priority, right? There's a lot of things competing for your priority, to be the priority in your work, if you're anything like the rest of us, right? A lot of ideas, a lot of profit stuff, a lot of things pulling us in a lot of different directions. If we want to be builders of thriving communities, we got to talk about it, we got to spend our time on it, and we got to spend some money on it. And if we do that well, it's going to pay us back in dividends beyond our wildest imaginations. I want to just ask you guys, this sounds all kind of warm and fuzzy, and we're going to sing Kumbaya at the end of this panel discussion because it's so good, right? Just kidding. But I want to ask you this. I got to imagine this doesn't come easy, right? This doesn't come without its challenges. Building community is not something that just happens overnight. It's not something that doesn't come without challenges. So I'd love to just talk about that. What should we anticipate as we look at it? We go from here today, we go back to our roles, and we say we want to dig into this. What can we anticipate as some of the challenges we might face to approaching our work from this building thriving communities mindset? Any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Just that it's not going to happen overnight. And it really does take consistently. For us in Apartment Life, we ask for a 2-year commitment from the couples that live on site, because it takes 6 months to a year to build trust among your residents. And so it takes time. And we want things to happen quickly. I mean, you guys are real estate guys. You like to chop, let's get it done. But this kind of work is slow as fast. So that's the first thing to remember.
Okay, give it time, sure. What else? Any other ideas on challenges that we might face?
Well, you just have to be intentional about it, and you've got to stick with it. And as Kelly said, it does take time, and you're implementing, one step at a time, and just, you're progressing. But at the end of the day, it's all towards the goal of building that thriving community. Mm-hmm. And I, agree. We're implementing, with what Don said earlier, we're implementing longer-term leases. And, it's creating that stickiness of that tenant in that community. It does build the community. And at the end of the day, the investors are even benefited even more. I mean, you had less turnover. And, you've got tenants that are really engaged in taking care of and keeping up the property and looking out for their neighbors. And it's the right direction, and we're going to continue to push hard for that.
Very good. Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah, Teresa.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, the first word you used, Kelly, was consistency, right? So that's a challenge in making sure that we're consistent with what we're delivering and we're living up to what we're promising that we're going to deliver, right? And sometimes that just comes with when you do utilize vendors, right? Making sure you get the quality and the consistency that you're looking for. But I'll tell you the other big challenge that I've seen, especially in the property operations and property management side, is we are inundated with prop tech. And there's a tremendous amount of technology that will help us deliver this and help us track and measure our success. But we have to be extremely careful not to rely on the technology to deliver this. So getting back to Kumbaya, but I have watched companies who have tried to do this by driving it through technology, drip campaigns, virtual fitness only, right? And you lose the human element and the human touch.
Okay.
And so I think it's really important that we be aware of that.
Yeah, very good, very good. Any other thoughts on that, the challenges? Yeah, right here, Peter.
I mean, I think this is with any new initiative or anything that you try. Like, how do you know it's working? Like, I mean, again, I think we can tell by leases and by turnover. That sometimes takes a while for you to figure it out. So I think for us, the challenge that we've had with anything we've done in our business is, like, when you do something, how do you know it's working? And so for us, like, trying to figure out a good way of getting feedback, making sure the team is understanding, gathering metrics, gathering all that. It's like a continual process. So I'll just be honest with you, that part is challenging. You think what you're doing is great, but it's kind of things like you don't want to wait for 6 months to figure out what you did was not really helpful.
Yeah.
So right away, like when you think of an initiative, like how are you, part of that is, how can you measure that? What's the feedback and the system beyond that to make sure you and course correct if necessary. So that's
Very
been a
good,
challenge.
yeah.
And I'd like to add, onto what Teresa said, and she's spot on, and it is, it's a human aspect of it. So, the challenge is to make sure that you have, the team members that are, wholeheartedly, bought into, creating these communities. It's a people business, and you've got to have, people that, believe in that, the importance of, the community and, have a, strong, faith-based, effort to really see this through. And it's not done through computers, and it's all human, driven.
Yeah, very good. At the end of the day, I got to imagine most people in this room, there's a lens through which we're hearing a lot of this, and there might be this little voice in the back of our heads that says, but like, come on, this is all good, but what about my investors? I've got a responsibility to my investors. I need to be making profit. This is all good, and I want to do it too, but how can I be sure that this is going to turn some money here, and help us thrive in that way as well? So I just want to kind of just pose the question to you guys, and maybe we'll kind of begin to wrap up with this last question. What is that? How do you balance that? This kind of holistic, really altruistic view. So for some of us on the panel, I gather that there's a real faith-based purpose to this for you. How do you balance that with this real responsibility that you live in of investor responsibility and profit responsibility and things like that? And give us some advice on that as we go away from that discussion today.
I'd like to think it was all altruistic, but it's not. I mean, we have commitments to our equity investors to generate yield, and I think you'll find implementing these programs, your NOI is actually going up. You're creating more value. It's the stickiness of the tenant. It's the lower turnover. It's less crime, less repair and maintenance. I mean, the people that are taken to heart their complex in their area, they're going to keep it up much better. So at the end of the day, you're spending some money, but you're creating this environment that drives profits. I mean, I think our equity investors' returns really increase. It's
very good. Okay. And Brett, I want to ask you really quick. You're on this investor side of things, right? And a large part of what you do is kind of in collaboration with DLP. This is how we eat, sleep, and breathe. What do you say to your investors as we begin? They go to a DLP event or they read a newsletter that Don sends out, and they're hearing about this building thriving community stuff, and they call Brett Swarts and they say, "What's this all about? And what kind of returns am I going to get from this?" How do you exist in that conversation to just build the bridge between this effort to build thriving communities and kind of the front end investment that looks like to the back end of that? What's that bridge look like?
Good question, Danny. Well, I think it starts with back to the leadership quote. I mean, the way I approach my business with anything else is if I'm not willing to invest myself or go first, then I don't want any of my investors to follow or necessarily unless they're bringing me an amazing investment with a deep relationship. So I think that it comes with extensive, background in real estate and multifamily. It was kind of natural for me when I actually learned about DLP and their performance and understanding that. A lot of our clients, their focus has been building wealth in real estate. So they come with a deep understanding of real estate, and I think the approach is pretty simple when you look at the track record, when you look at the performance, look at the transparency. I think the bigger picture too for clients is the ability to have some flexibility within the different funds and approach it. The way I approach the business is like a real estate investment advisor. A lot of folks who have approached investing in general have like a financial advisor, which tends to be more securities focused. I like to approach it with a real estate mind, and a lot of my clients appreciate that as they're entrepreneurs and business owners. They really can understand at a simple level how to make good returns on multifamily investments. And then connecting that with tax flow versus just cash flow, because I think at the end of the day, taxes are going up. It's our biggest expense, and figuring out ways to unlock capital to hopefully not only make a great profit, but also make an impact, right? And looking at just the sheer number of wealth that's transferred in the next 20 years and trying to create and cast a vision that's beyond just their personal enrichment of their lives or their families, but actually making a big impact for generations to come. So that's an $84 trillion transfer. It's the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet. There's 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every single day in the U.S., 77 million in the U.S. alone. And that 84 trillion, we call it the reverse Tea Party. And the reverse Tea Party kind of goes like this. 240 years ago, we fought for independence based upon taxation. And now we've created, or America collectively with the people have created more wealth perhaps in the history of the planet. And if we can unlock that capital to be pointed towards things like housing and towards things that are actually more dependable returns, it can make a huge impact. And that's just part of what our vision is to kind of create that momentum with what's available for tax strategies and such.
Very good, yeah. I almost feel like, I approach this conversation oftentimes, and this thing that we're dealing with on this panel, from the perspective of either or. And what I hear you saying, it's really not an either or. This is a both and. That as we build thriving communities, our investors are going to benefit from that.
Yeah, and capital's got to be unlocked, right? With the banks and the sense of the regional banks and financing and challenges there, right? It's got to, where's the capital coming from, right? And if you look at where that's at and where it's locked with a lot of assets that are 50% of the total net worth in America is tied to high-end primary homes, businesses, private equity, and commercial real estate. And so a lot of that's illiquid assets that's subject to huge capital gains taxes, right? So how do you unlock that capital? Well, you got to have a solution for that, and then you'd be able to pour into multifamily funds, and building communities funds, and or to lend. That's what unlocks the capital. But that gap is the big problem. It's somewhere between 20 and 50% of the proceeds are going to be wiped out. So you got to have a solution for that, right? Otherwise, people don't sell the businesses, they don't sell the real estate. And or they might, be forced into a 1031 exchange that they can't afford the debt on now because it's been an inverse. And so it's just understanding, I like to call it tax flow, cash flow, debt flow, and understanding those three things and how they can move versus just cash flow, which is kind of I think is the key here to making the Rubik's Cube all kind of line up.
Very good. Okay. Teresa, I think you wanted to share some thoughts there. Yeah, and Kelly too.
So my stat's a little more simple. But we survey our clients every year, and we just got our results back, and it is attributed to Apartment Life that we are able to renew 5 leases every single month. And so you think of the turnover cost of about $4,000, that's a $20,000 investment every single month. And then you look at $240,000 a year that you're saving. Is right there. That's one stat. And
per property.
Per property. Mm-hmm. And then we are able, our teams are attribute to 3 renewals every single, 3
new lease.
3 new leases, thank you so much, based on Google reviews. And so that just from people going in and saying, this party was so fun, I love living here. And then, you don't even find a restaurant without looking at Google reviews. The same thing, that's what residents do is they're looking for a new place. And then it also says that 5 hours per week, the management staff will say that Apartment Life helps the staff out. And so, you're helping on the resident side, but then also the management side where they feel like the team is helping their load. And so that helps with staff turnover.
Very good. Okay. Back to you, Teresa. Did you have something? Or if you don't, that's okay. All right. So in the interest of time, I think we want to kind of move into, first of all, any last final comments you guys want to make before we kind of do this. But we want to move into a little bit of an opportunity for you to ask some questions. You've done a great job of sitting here and soaking in a lot of information. My guess is that you might even had some ideas stir up, or as I asked a panelist the question up here, you had an answer to some of those. We'd love to just share some ideas as a room now. So let's just kind of open this up for some questions. Somebody's coming over with a microphone there real quick. Right over here, Rich. Raise your hand again. There we go. And let's give us your question.
Okay, great panel. Really interesting topics. I'm intrigued by this Apartment Life events, and I wonder, does it go all through the demographic scale? In other words, what is the sort in an apartment community that's 35 to 60-year-olds? Is there a different Apartment Life activity and component to it versus a younger demographic in a certain near a college town is one question. The second one, and perhaps Kip and Kelly, you can answer, either one of you can answer these. Are you seeing that thriving communities are equaling safer communities because of the interaction of the residents?
That's a great question. Kelly, let's toss to you first.
Yes, so Apartment Life works with A-plus communities all the way down to affordable communities. So we have the conventional model, and then we have an affordable model. So yes, And then it's kind of like we're a dating app, because we depending on the asset, then we find a couple that will fit that asset. And so we have a thorough vetting process for the people who go on site to live. So, yes.
Great. How about his second question there? Anything you guys want to add, and especially Kip or Teresa, who kind of some portfolio people, in terms of safety? Did you mention that? Does it translate to safety?
Yeah, I think it does, absolutely. And, to the first part of your question, we're pulling from the community in which, the apartment complex, is. And so, we're, partnering with the, local churches and the, other businesses within that community. So it does translate well within that apartment complex. And I do think that it does provide, additional, eyes, ears, and security as more and more of the residents engage to the, benefit of all. And so I think it's a win-win.
Very good. Yeah. Other questions in the room today? Yeah, right over here. We're coming with the mic, so hang on just a second. Go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question, too. We'll come to you next, okay?
I want to share briefly 3 initiatives we've done that have helped our communities.
Very good.
We do a back-to-school drive every year where we have the community donate school supplies. That's been extremely successful for us. We bring in a veggie van. They're offering healthy food programming to residents. And then our most successful site actually has a daycare on site. Oh, wow. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about people on the job creation aspect of this and upskilling, and if there's anyone offering programs really hitting on that financial aspect of living fully, and offer suggestions there.
Very
anyone
good.
Has any.
Tell us your name and where you're from, too.
I'm Beth, again, from Columbus.
Beth from Columbus. Okay. Thanks, Beth. All right, we have another one over here. Rich, on this one, a couple of them over here. While you're doing that, Beth, I just need you to know, at DLP, we're like-minded with you. We did a backpack drive as well, but I have to brag on us a little bit. We set the world record, I think, right? Guinness Book of World Records for collecting 4,700 backpacks for our communities at once. So thank you for sharing with us your ideas. That's great. Any of you others that have ideas exactly like that, we want to hear those today. So go ahead with your question. Right, raise your hand.
I stole the mic.
She stole the mic.
I wish I had a question. I don't have a question, but I will tell you that this is my favorite panel. It is what I do in Las Vegas. It's what we do in our communities, and I'm a huge advocate. It changes people's lives. I've done every single thing that's been said up there, from TED Talks to fireside chats to fitness to health to everything about building community is a part of what we do. And just hearing this and how alignment we are with every one of you is so exciting to hear. But I mean, I even had a group of residents, but one resident took it upon herself to write a book about what it was like living in our community through COVID. It was called COVID Cocktails and Community.
Oh, wow.
And we happen to have a restaurant in our community, and we have a lifestyle team within our community. And she took it upon herself and got testimonies from multiple residents, and they all shared their experience about what it was like living through COVID and surviving because of the sense of community. So this was amazing.
Very good. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it. Make sure you get her card before you leave. She's an expert at this, can share some ideas with you. Go right ahead.
I mean, I just love the word thrive, as a level above surviving, right? And you find like so many apartments are just surviving with the basics. So it's such the right thing to offer this. And I'm kind of curious, the format, are you kind of offering this as a service with the existing property management? Are you the property manager? I'm kind of curious how
Teresa, you want to?
Yeah, for Apartment Life, sorry. Yeah, Kelly.
No, we come alongside the property management. Sure. So we don't do that. We will, I mean, it's a program that it does come with a cost.
Yep.
Our program does, but we just come alongside. We're a partner with them, and for the couple that lives on site, it is like we ask for 10 to 20 hours a week from them, so that most of them have jobs, and then this is just something they do on the side.
Got it. No,
Does
interesting.
that answer your question?
I'm curious more and more about, but it's interesting to hear the structure of it, because I imagine you have a bunch of third-party property managers out there.
Yes.
Some folks self-manage. It's interesting to hear more like where you found the best fit. And then just kind of, a little bit more about it. It sounds like it's a fee, like annual fee, I guess kind of flat fee model. I don't know if there's incentives for more retention, but, but I'm sure there's so much more of a statistic that you could show that you're just finding more and more folks are staying longer. Retention, I imagine, if you looked at the stats internally, is north of the average. So I love it as a service, and it's the first time hearing about it. So I'm kind of curious about just how it works. But
yeah, so we do. I mean, we work with management companies, but we also work with owners. And so for some owners, they put us on everything, and then some it's just based on what the needs of the asset. It's usually best if it's 220 units or more. Just because of the expense of the program. And so it's a monthly fee of $800, and then it's a unit, concessed unit, which most, there's open units anyway, and then the event fee. So it's usually about $2 a door. And then, we really train our teams to manage that money well and to be able to use the local vendors to be able to come in and, they provide the food or whatever it is. However, it's based on the calendar, how they do the events, holiday parties or yappy hours. They do all kinds of things like that. So we can talk after. How about that?
Generating some business. That's good. That's perfect. Teresa, I know that DLP is working with Apartment Life. We're going to be partnering together moving forward, and just any thoughts that you have to share in regards to that about what it looks like, that partnership, and how you see that happening.
No, thank you. And I think that's really important, and it's another response to the question from the gentleman there. I mean, it's really important to have partners like Apartment Life that help come alongside you and deliver this component. I mean, the element that Apartment Life can bring, is very important, and then we can supplement with our church relationships, right, and providing church services and opportunities for that within our communities. Then we can partner with others to help provide after school and daycare opportunities. So it's really important to find those relationships and leverage those, and then you're able to build out the whole program.
I'm going to take a few more questions here, so raise your hand. I know we've got one right here. Raise your hand ahead of time if you've got one. So one back there, but we'll go for you first.
Yeah, Kelly, sorry, I know the questions are directed to you. But, we are a developer. We build for rent communities in Utah. So I don't think you're going to have like the stripper challenges that you have with other developments. But are you finding that it's harder to create that sense of community in an environment like ours, or do you have any experience with build for rent communities in comparison to apartment communities?
So we are just beginning to try this out. We are an innovative group, and so we're looking for ways to come alongside the build to rent. But it is something we want to do because it's similar to them building the 4-bedroom homes. It's like everybody needs community no matter where you live, and so we want to be able to move into that because that's what the industry is moving into. So we want to be a part of it also.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. How about back here at the back of the room? Coming to you with the mic.
No, I don't need the mic. Okay, I wanted to say one thing, and that is that our building and thriving of communities starts with each one of you, because there are so many things that you can bring to the table and share with your local apartment communities. We have apartment communities that have food banks for our residents in case they need something, and because you never know when they do, and they refill it after they use it. We also bring in tax preparers during this time of year. We allow them to work in our clubhouses so that our residents who are single parents or who are parents to young children that want to get them to bed, they cannot leave the community and yet still have their taxes done. There are so many needs out there for financial management planning for residents. A lot of these folks have never had that. And that's where some of you can come in. So also giving our residents the opportunities for those that may be doing, whether it's Tupperware or whatever it may be, we host and let them come in and have a full day of just those kind of events. And other residents can blend in. Then your local community restaurants, oh my gosh, they will give 10% discounts every day of the week for our residents. So it really does start with us.
And Melanie, we might mention that we do third-party property management as well.
And we do it very well.
That's great.
All right, any other questions? Thank you so much for mentioning that, Melanie. Grabbing a lot of these ideas, right? I hope you're writing some of these down. These were fantastic ideas. He's taking notes over here. I like it. Any other questions today? Yeah, right here. He's got the mic right behind you.
Well, it's partly just a comment. A lot of the comments I hear about apartment life seem to be very basic and minimized, that they're cruise directors, they plan parties, they do this. You know, as an owner, we won't own a property without apartment life on it. And most of our capital is institutional capital. But the thing, and I forget, we've been involved a little bit with them since 1990 or 93 or something like that. But the thing that happens with these parties and the social things is relationships are made where the teams earn the right to speak into people's lives. So when life happens, they're in a position to affect them drastically. We had people shot at the Las Vegas massacre, and we had people in position to do that. Apartment life was with us in Houston during Hurricane Katrina. And I sound like a fatalist. I mean, I love COVID. It's such an opportunity when life happens, when these relationships are made, because that's the foundation for lives, being changed. And I just want to make that comment because I think it's a little more than just planning parties. There's a strategy to enter into a person's life to earn the right to affect them for a very, very long period of time.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much. Yeah, what we're talking about today is nothing small, right? There's some significant impact to be made through us and in us as we begin to look at our lives and look at the impact we have an opportunity to do in the community around us. Any final questions as we wrap up the panel here today? Anything else you kind of want to touch on or ask questions of? Any other ideas you want to share? Yeah.
Clearly, it's not a question because I raised my hand at the very end. Just a comment. Everybody probably remember their high school graduation party, right? So when we're running these communities, sometimes B and C class communities, the blue collar people in, imagine if there's a high school graduation going on and there's a pipe leak, right? And so in addition to what apartment lives and these ideas for, creating community, what we do in our properties, we give it a name and we call it We Care. And then there's a care event, and so that way everybody's speaking the same language. And then our residents, our lead maintenance and maintenance staff, they have a care count every month at how much did you, what else did you do other than the part of the job. So you can always engage your employees for those owners who are here and become a part of that, overall community engagement. Right. So just a comment there.
I'm
Very
so glad.
good.
Can I,
Yeah,
I
go
will
right
say,
ahead.
I'm so glad you brought that up, and I think it's going to be a great segue into our next panel too. But it is having your employee engagement right too. I mean, you want your staff to be completely bought in on this and really providing that level of service, that level of care, and hospitality as well. To working with other groups too. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Very good. Well, we're going to wrap up this section. We've got another panel right after this with some fantastic people that are going to come up here in just a second, and we're going to power through today, okay? We're going to wrap this up with another panel discussion, but we're not going to take an official break, but if you need to take a quick break and go to the restroom, grab a drink or something, do that. I want to leave you with one final thought as we wrap this up tonight. Okay, one final thought is this. I read a study the other day about child abuse. We were having some discussions about how to prevent child abuse and that, and I started doing some research. And this study is actually a study of, I think, 50 other studies across the country. And the results of the study indicated that the single most significant contributing factor to an episode of child abuse in the life of a child is social isolation, right? You might think that it would be maybe the presence of an addiction or some kind of, maybe there's an income threshold where we see more incidents of child abuse or something like that, or a family history of abuse, or all these things that kind of come to mind. No. The single most significant contributing factor to an episode of child abuse is social isolation. So this thing that we're talking about of leading our companies and leading our properties and leading our own lives in a way that draws people out of isolation into connectedness, into community, into deeper meaning, into impact with one another, man, this is no small deal. This is like big time stuff we're talking about. This is that little boy, that little girl at your community that's 64 times more likely to end up in prison if she doesn't have a community around her that encourages her education, right? And helps her thrive into a college graduate. This is big stuff. So hope you're grabbing some real nuggets of inspiration, some encouragement, some information today as you go through the rest of this. I want to call up Bo. Come on up, Bo. Bo is DLP's managing principal, kind of our head of growth at DLP. Come on up, Bo. Yeah, let's give these panelists a great round of applause. Thank you, guys.